Hey there, it is Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
It's been a while. I am so glad she's back. Well, we both are, aren't we, Dan? Susan
Well, I mean,
Norris.
she had to get some counseling after the last session, but she's gotten through it, and she's ready to come back on.
Wait a minute. Who needed the counseling? I think it was you and I the last time she was.
me.
Susan Norris, the founder of Rescuing Hope. This happens to be National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. We're going to talk about that. Rescuing Hope, of course, enlightening the public about sex trafficking in America and educating potential victims. Susan's been on the show many times. It's been a while. It's good to have you. If you're watching Facebook Live or YouTube Live, she worked hard to get that fire going there behind her. So
she went out and chopped all the wood herself,
Yeah.
got the starter twigs, and
Exactly. That switch was really hard to flip.
I'm sure it was.
Well, let's catch up with you. I know that you did send us 10 steps to playing it safe at home, and we'd like to talk about that. It is like the top 10 there. It's really cool. Let's talk about this being National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. What's going on for you there where you are, Rescuing Hope, and with other organizations? What's going on this month?
Sure. Well, with it being National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, our speaking calendar and platforms to share the work that we do escalates. And that is good, but what we want people to recognize is this is a 365-day-a-year issue. So while we highlight it in January, it happens every single day of the year and in every single zip code. So we take the opportunity to draw attention to the different organizations that are in this fight and ways that people can plug in. We had the privilege to be down in St. Simons last week, although while we were there, they said it was their coldest day recorded in the last 4 years. So
you didn't do any surfing or anything while you were down there?
No, I was ready for some surfing, but bundled up inside freezing. But we were able to, we went in and did some training for a couple of churches. Community Church has a campus in Brunswick as well as St. Simons. And so we met with their staff and were able to give them a training and talk about ways that we partner with churches, things that we can do to help the pastors, the youth pastors and parents in a church. And then ways that the church can partner with us in this fight, because it takes everyone. It takes volunteers. It takes money. It takes doors being open to educate more people about this issue. So that's what we've been doing. We've been going, we've been speaking, we've been doing trainings, first responder trainings. We did a training for Wellstar Hospital for nurses and doctors. That was virtual because, bless them, these doctors and nurses are working around the clock.
Yeah.
Really difficult situations, but they recognize that this is a huge issue. And we formed a partnership with Wellstar where now their doctors and nurses receive CEU credits when they do our training. So they have 11 hospitals. We've done 5 or 6 trainings. We have some more on the docket to do with them. So we're really excited with some of the partnerships that we've been forming around the state.
That's so good.
Awesome. So, Susan, before we get to some of these 10 steps to playing it safe at home, I also saw on your Facebook page, I believe the other day, that you have an event coming up, an 80s dance event. That caught my attention, and I said, "Oh, 80s are back! Yay!"
Yes.
Now, is that for 80-year-olds or is that the?
Well, yes and no. You
Yes
can
and
come
no,
if you're 80. Now, we have some great friends over at Keller Williams Signature Partners, a realty in Marietta, Georgia. They're on Dallas Highway, and they've been great partners with us. They've volunteered. They've opened doors for us to go in and speak, and they've been financial contributors as well. And they wanted to have a fun event. The primary agent behind this, Thomas Crone, he is such a nut, and he loves to dress up, and he loves any excuse to have a party. And so he got together with another one of our ambassadors, Tammy Dalrymple, and they just started dreaming and planned this incredible event. It's going to be February 11th at Glover Park Brewery, and you come dressed in your best 80s. It can be prom attire, or I think he said he might come dressed as Richard Simmons, which will be.
Oh, wow. That'll be special.
So you pick out your 80s garb, you come, they're going to have 80s music. They'll have drinks, and they'll have appetizers, and they're even doing some silent auction things. So it's really just an excuse for those of us who love 80s music to come together, have a blast, dress up a little wacky, because Lord knows the 80s was a wacky time period.
Hey, 80s were amazingly awesome,
The
Susan.
best music. So we're just going to have fun, and in the process, raise some money for the work that we do at Rescuing Hope. So please come and join us.
So, Susan, what are you going to be wearing? Are you going to have your big hair and wearing like leggings or whatever? What was popular for the girls in the 80s?
Leg warmers.
Leg
were
warmers, yeah.
popular.
The Jane Fonda look, maybe.
Very big hair, like hair
Yeah.
that goes way up.
Right.
Yeah, you got to
I'll
tease
have
it way
to
up.
go get my 3 bottles of Aquanet hairspray and put some work to it. But I have yet decided on the outfit. I don't know if I'm going to go the all black Pat Benatar or if I'm going to go the prom dress look. So I'm still looking.
The
You
Pat
just have
Benatar
to
look.
come,
Okay.
Rick and Dan. Y'all come dressed, and we will have pictures to prove that you were there.
That sounds like a fun event, actually. The
Now,
80s, I'm all about the 80s. So
I had a
I'm gonna look for you.
I had a mullet in the 80s, and apparently the mullet is back. I don't know that I have the hair to fulfill the obligation.
you can do a mullet
Okay.
with your beard.
I think the mullet has turned around to the front of your face instead of the back.
It's party in the front and business in the back now. Yeah.
Did you say they have to sign up to come to, or can you just show up?
They can show up and buy tickets at the door.
Okay.
Awesome.
Susan Norris, founder of Rescuing Hope, we're talking to her. All right, let's talk about what's going on. I know that there's a lot of work to be done, and this is the awareness month. And as you mentioned, it's a 365-day-a-year thing. I'm reading not every week, but every couple of months that there are different stings that are happening around, and it looks like things are getting better. How are we doing as far as a state? I know there's work to be done, but how are we doing?
The state of Georgia is really a front runner in this fight. We are very swift to get laws on the books. In fact, we helped with the vacatur expungement law before we were at the bottom of the barrel with that law, because we didn't have one. And we put great work in, worked strongly alongside the governor's office, and they took it to the floor and it passed unanimously. And so now the First Survivors Act is a law that is the third best in the nation for helping survivors. And the beautiful thing about this is the governor's office invited survivors to come in, and they got to help craft this law, which was amazing, because we saw some of those that we serve get to have input, which is important. If it impacts survivors, they need to have a voice in this. And so we're hugely excited about that. I know that First Lady Marty Kemp has done an amazing job with her Grace Commission to take legislation to the floor. And I know she's taken 7 different bills and they've all passed. So we're doing great on a legislative side. We're also doing well on an awareness side. There are more people talking about trafficking today than ever before, but you'll still meet someone who's like, oh, that happens in Thailand. And you're like, no, that happens in your neighborhood and that happens in your community. And when you go into your grocery store, there are potential victims and traffickers there. When you go to a football game in a high school stadium, and when you're online on all of these apps that everyone loves to be on, there are traffickers there and they are trolling for their next victim. So we need to be very vigilant and not only educating the young people who are victims, but their parents as well, so that they will pay attention and really take charge of their child's safety, particularly when it comes to technology, because that is the primary way. It is so risk easy for these people. It's so low risk, because you can be anybody you want to be behind a screen.
Yep.
And it takes a whole lot of savvy technology to be able to ping things around and find where that person on that screen is. They could be in another state. They could be next door, and they're communicating with your young person like they're another 15 or 16-year-old, and they're slowly luring them in. Young people like adults as well, like to overshare on social media, and they tell so much information that they don't know they're giving away.
Well, with that in mind, let's talk about some of these steps to playing it safe at home, because I think this is a great list, not only for kids, but also, like you said, for parents to make them aware. So let's start at the top here. It's time to talk. that's the uncomfortable talk to have with your kid about sex trafficking, but it's something you need to talk about, right?
Well, I always tell parents, you need to have
Sorry,
this.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Oops, and now Siri's
Siri,
talking
we're
to
not
me.
talking to you, Siri.
Hush, Siri. I always tell parents that you're having this conversation sooner than you want to if you're doing it right. Because if you wait until it's age appropriate for them, someone on the other side of the screen has already had that conversation. So we've got to all take a deep breath, put on our big girl panties and big boy panties, and go in there and have this conversation with our kids. We've got to let them know that the internet, while it's a great tool and it's fun to play games and the apps are fun to use, they are also danger zones. So have that conversation with your kids. Talk about the risk, talk about safety protocols, and talk about what to do when someone approaches you that you don't know. Not if, but when. And they may pose as a friend. They may pose as a classmate. They may pose as someone that you know. So be very vigilant as a parent in having these conversations. And unfortunately, it's not a one and done. This is a dialogue that will go through until they reach adulthood, or it should be. So buckle up and get ready. And if you need resources, reach out to us. We've got tons of things to help you.
Yeah.
Susan Norris, founder of Rescuing Hope. Susan, we want to keep you. We want to cover a few more of these, if not the rest of them. So, Dan, if we can, let's just go ahead and keep her on. It is Faith Talk Live with Rick and Dan, and Susan Norris with us, founder of Rescuing Hope. We're going over the 10 steps to playing it safe. I'm not trying to be funny here, but from time to time, if I'm on Facebook, I'll get somebody on there that sends a post, and it's like her name is Bunny Finnegan or something. And she'll, hey, how are you doing? Long time no see. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know a Bunny Finnegan. And secondly, I'm not stupid. I can recognize it. And I'm thinking, now who in the world would fall for that? But
lots of people do.
Lots of people do. So the thing is that, we could think, the kids will be okay. They won't be okay. We've got to play it safe. So you got to talk to them. Number 2 is being the parent. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, this is where I get really unpopular with young people. That parents need to be the parent. Nobody's going to go open their front door and say, hey, come on in. My kid's back there. Go do what you want. I'm going to be in here in the kitchen cooking dinner. But when we hand them technology and we don't put any parameters there, any safeties there, then we do that. We basically invite them into our child's lives. So one of the biggest things that we talk about is to have a place where technology is in the thoroughfare zones. It's in the areas, in the dining room, in the kitchen, in the family room. It's in the areas where you're passing through and no one's hiding anything. But if they're in their bedroom with technology, if they are behind a closed door anywhere or in a basement playing a gaming system and you're upstairs 1 or 2 stories above, you really don't know what's going on there. We had a young lady whose mom reached out for help because her daughter was being homeschooled. You think a lot of people homeschool to keep their kids away from dangers. And she was 15. She was being homeschooled. And so since she didn't have a lot of social interaction, mom and dad allowed her to game. And she was very into STEM stuff and she was a gamer. So mom's in the kitchen working on cooking meals while her daughter's in the bedroom gaming. Someone was able to connect through the gaming system, posing as someone her age, cultivated a friendship, and then started making requests, asking for pictures with your shirt off, then pictures with other things. And once the child became very scared and said, nope, I'm not doing that, then what they had already taken from them was the leverage to get more. So the young lady never told her parents, but the reason she came home to homeschool was because of bullying. So she was going to a counselor. And fortunately, she felt safe enough with this counselor to divulge what was going on. And when they got all down to the bottom of it and mom came in, but at being a mandatory reporter, the counselor had to report. The GBI got involved. And this young lady had been part of an international child pornography ring and had no idea.
Wow.
And was being groomed for being lured into the sex trade. So thankfully, there was a counselor there who was able to intercept and get this child some help. But there had been some damage done already. And as we know, once something's on the internet, it doesn't go away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So a quick
Yeah.
Google search when she applies for college, when she applies for a job, some of these things could surface, which would be insult to injury and more trauma on top of trauma.
Yeah.
So we really need to think it's not being a prude. It's not saying you're not letting your kids grow up. It's literally safety. You wouldn't allow your child to stay out and run the streets of the city without supervision. It's the same thing with technology. Don't allow them to run the cyber streets without supervision.
Yeah. Great stuff. And I think it goes along with number 3 as well. Set limits for everyone, as far as limits on how often you're playing the game, where you're playing the game, things like that. Let's talk about the no trouble zone. What is the no trouble zone?
No trouble zone is where you just basically let parents share with their kids that things are going to happen. And when they do, you need to make sure that you reach out to them and say, you're not going to get in trouble if you come to me. You are allowed to come in and tell me things have happened. I know you're not out trolling around looking for this, but it's not a if situation. Like with pornography, for example, it's a when. The average age that a pornographer is trying to market to right now is an 8-year-old. So anywhere someone is searching for things for school projects, if they're on YouTube, whatever they go to, things are going to pop up down the side. And it's, they're curious. We're wired to be curious beings. And so when they see something and it's a little different than what they have looking down, they're like, wonder what that is. That's a natural curiosity. But they need to be able to come to mom and dad and be like, hey, I was doing my report on the White House and this popped up. I'm not sure what's going on. And mom and dad need to take that deep breath, count to 10 instead of be like, oh, dear God, you're going, you're a sinner. This is awful, whatever they want to do, or you're in trouble. Instead of losing your stuff right there with your kids, just be like, okay, tell me what you were looking for that led to this, and let's see what we can do. Is this something we need to report, or do we just need to block this site from you? So that there's open dialogue, because it's not going to be a one and done situation with your kids, because this issue is growing, and those on the other side of that computer screen are very savvy. They're not idiots. So they're going to look for another way to get to your kids. So empower them to know how to fight this fight and make it so that they're not in trouble.
We're talking with Susan Norris, founder of Rescuing Hope. We're going over the 10 steps to playing it safe at home. We're running out of time. We won't be able to cover all 10. We just finished up with no trouble zone. Susan, pick one of the others that you think is important for us to cover right now, and where they can get the list for the other stuff.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that people overlook, they think about cell phones and tablets and computers, but they overlook gaming systems. And gaming systems connect to the internet, and they are a form of technology. And as I shared with the example, there are traffickers that will come through gaming systems. There was one interview with a trafficker that said he looks out and sends out 100 invitations a day on all different kinds of platforms, just trying to get one person to accept a connection with him. And then he'll troll through their friend group and try and make other connections. So it's hugely important that we talk with our young people about every form of technology. Most of them are carrying these things around in their pocket, which makes them accessible to traffickers 24/7. So it's important that we discuss these things with them and talk through what protocols are in place, both at school, at home, or if you're at a friend's house and something happens, how to set something up so that your child knows there are safe people to go to. The full list is at rescuinghope.com under our Learn tab. It's in English and in Spanish. And we have lots of other resources there for parents as well. They can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and they can find what we're posting, share that, and use their platforms that they have as a way of helping to spread this message. Yes, social media is a tool that the enemy is using to come after your kids, but you can leverage for good and help get the message out. And just be very vigilant. And if at all at doubt and not sure what to do, reach out to someone. We have an info@rescuinghope.com email that you can always send a message to, and we will get back to you. We're not fancy enough to have other people answer. We answer our own, or you
Susan,
can
you know you're fancy. Come on.
no, not even close. So, yeah, I was really afraid when it had my name popping up there. I wasn't sure what name y'all were going to give me with the two of you. And I'm not savvy enough to go in and change it. So it was a little scary.
Well, we can give you the name Fancy Norris. How's that?
Fancy. There you go.
I think that belongs to Reba McEntire.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It does.
Susan Norris. I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say find out more about that 80s party as well.
Yeah.
If you're an 80s freak like me. And is there more on that on rescuinghope.com as well?
It's on all of our socials. So if you
On the
click on
social,
all of our social links, you can find it. And Dan, I'm looking for you there. You've already said you're the 80s fan. You better show up.
Well,
And
then
if
maybe.
not, I will give a shout out and let people know you did not.
I believe she
No
would do
pressure.
that, Dan. She would do
No
that.
pressure. No.
Yeah, yeah. Susan Norris, always a great time. Let's pick up with you in the spring. We'll see. We'll talk about the event and how that went, and again how people can help, and what's going on for the rest of 2022. RescuingHope.com is the place to go to. We got to take a break. We will be right back. I'm Rick Probst,
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.
Bye, Fancy.